Well, with one single sentence, the Supreme Court has ultimately made all assault weapon bans unconstitutional. Well, how'd this all play out? Well, before we get into it, I do want to thank our sponsor, Jace Medical, for not just supporting this channel, but being the only company in the world where a U.S. doctor can prescribe you emergency medications. Not medications because you need them. All doctors do that. But emergency medications before you need them, in case you need them. Things like emergency antibiotics, your emergency chronic meds. You know, we have seen twice, just in the last 4 months, internet issues play out with hospital systems as well as insurance companies to the point where people weren't able to get their chronic meds. And that's just a computer issue. Imagine if all of a sudden all sorts of systems go down, or there's some sort of weather catastrophe or a war or whatever happens. This way you can have a year's supply of your chronic meds just in case you need them. They also have antivirals in case the government tries to scare you with the bird flu or COVID medication in case there's like a COVID-25 coming or something like that. So that link is below. It's the only company in the world that does it. Ever since the Supreme Court decision on New York Rifle and Pistol Club versus Bruin back in 2022, which ultimately gave us additional rights that we already have, it just is recognized by the Supreme Court, because before that, the Supreme Court said that we all have the right to own firearms. But many states kind of doubled down on that. And they're like, all right, you can own a firearm, you just can't leave your house with it. And that is a problem. And of course, now that we hit this Bruin case, they say, well, no, now everybody has the right to carry a gun. And that was a big celebration for me. If you watch my videos on it, as leading up to it, it was always with hope and victory in my heart. But the reality was that the moment that decision was laid out, literally that day, the federal government, state governments, county governments, and city governments around this country doubled down on anti-Second Amendment efforts. Just doubled down on them. Like I have less rights now than I did before the Bruin decision. And this is something that, you know, that's a whole other video. Like, we can take a look at that another day and kind of see, well, how do we avoid that as we move forward? Because, and there may be no way to avoid that. You know, every time the Supreme Court says, okay, you have the right to do this with a gun, well, now now we're going to take away 4 more rights from you. So the biggest piece of this has really been the bans of certain guns. What has been labeled in quotes as assault weapon bans. And really those bans revolve around any firearm that has a pistol grip and a semi-automatic action and takes magazines. Like, therein lies the definition of what that is, because if you ask people that do these bans, they don't know anything about it, the gun itself. So irregardless to that, of course, as soon as states like Illinois and New Jersey start passing these bans, ultimately what you had people then coming up against that in the court system. And really, it's something significant took place in the New Jersey case of ANJRC versus Platkin, where ultimately they went against New Jersey, saying that the assault weapons ban, as well as their magazine capacity ban of 10 or less, is unconstitutional. And ultimately it made it to the district court, which said that the restrictions in the assault weapon ban was unconstitutional, with the AR-15 specifically labeled, like, well, more specifically the Colt AR-15, which I'm a little confused. Like, does that mean I can only own a Colt? Or are we talking about the Armalite 15? Is, like, what are we actually talking about here? Because you got to be cautious with that wordage. But they say the Colt AR-15 and say that the assault weapon ban itself is unconstitutional. However, the magazine ban is constitutional. Now, this is very significant because they based it off of what was said by the Supreme Court. There was one single sentence that was said by Clarence Thomas regarding the Bruin case. It says, when it applies to the Second Amendment, you have to look at history and what was going on with restrictions when it was written in 1791. Well, there weren't any restrictions in 1791 when it was written. So, they had the British rules, laid on them, but at this point that didn't apply at all. So you have to look at history. There were no restrictions at the time, and ultimately that one sentence, why now the assault weapons ban, in quotes, in New Jersey has been ruled unconstitutional. But it's that magazine thing that's still kind of hanging, because so now what you're going to have is you're going to have New Jersey appealing the assault weapons ban being ruled unconstitutional, and you're going to have the plaintiff appealing that the magazine ban remaining is unconstitutional. So I think it's almost stirred up a little more confusion than not, but ultimately the reality of it is that the assault weapons ban has been ruled unconstitutional because of what was stated by Clarence Thomas in New York Rifle and Pistol Club versus Bruin. So there you go. Right now, as it stands, assault weapons bans are unconstitutional based off of the Circuit Court as well as the Supreme Court. We'll just kind of see how this all plays out, but it's so far playing out real nicely. When it comes to the courts in the end, when it comes to how lawmakers are applying this rule, it's just worse than ever before. Just worse than ever before. And I honestly think that Illinois is not going to reverse theirs. They're not part of that circuit. So, we'll see how all this plays out. So any thoughts or insight on any of this, definitely put it below. I do want to take a moment and say most people watch this channel, not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, love guns.